This is a very belated weekly rotation video for last week. Normally I would have uploaded this a couple of days ago. If you've watched my channel, you probably know why I didn't upload it when I did, but today, to distract myself, I thought I would still record the video and upload it now. Better late than never. And some of you might be interested in what I wore last week ending 16th of July. Okay, let's start off with Monday. I went with Déclaration by Cartier, one of my favorite Jean-Claude Helena perfumes. Kind of a little bit, to my mind, an homage to Eau d'Hermès by Hermès, but it has its quite noticeable differences. Then I got to wear, a couple of weeks ago I did a live stream with my buddy Cos, and we were doing some blind sampling, and my favorite blind sample from what he sent me was this Habit Rouge Privé. I could not help myself. I had a serious, overwhelming case of FOMO because, as far as I know, this beautiful looking flacon, this perfume, is at the moment limited. And I don't know if it's a limited run or limited to distribution, but either way, I found a place that would ship to Australia, and I'm very happy to own this bottle because I do really like the perfume. I'll do a full review of Habit Rouge Privé at some point when I've worn it more. But if you want an outline, to me, it's identifiable as Habit Rouge. There are elements of it that really showcase the original's DNA, but this to me certainly amps up the leather, particularly in the mid to the base notes, and I get quite a nice earthy, velvety iris note that runs through it, which for me is surprising because I really I'm not a huge fan of iris perfumes, or maybe it's iris perfumes more so than the note itself. Here it complements everything wonderfully. It's really blended well with this orange blossom note as well, which kind of is what sets it apart from the original. It's an eau de parfum concentration, whereas my original is eau de toilette, and this kind of feels a little bit more compressed. Anyway, that's what I wore on Monday, but it is beautiful, and this is also unfortunately discontinued from the House of Florist London. This is 1962. To me, it is a wonderful kind of green, woody, aromatic fragrance with a great basil note in the top. It's not pure basil. It's not. It's kind of a little bit spicier. It's not the sweet basil that you put in Italian cooking. It is mixed with cypress, and it is very reminiscent of Tom Ford's Italian cypress. In the afternoon, I switched to, and I finally finished my travel spray. I think it was about an 8ml travel spray of Ormond Jane's Ormond Woman. And for a long time while I had that travel spray, I kept thinking, so it's interesting, and this is why it's worth, if you get decants, it's worth just holding, as long as nothing is being discontinued or you can't, or hard to buy, it's worth finishing off a full decant or a sample of something, because at various stages of me owning that travel spray of Ormond Woman, I was sure that I would eventually get a bottle of it. Now that I've finished it, I don't feel any need. It's mainly, and it's probably because as lovely as that perfume is, it's a gorgeous grass, like sweet grass, greeny note, but it dries down into this sort of very light amber base. It's still pretty unique for what it is, but I now have a couple of kind of perfumes that I love more in that sort of green perfume genre. So that's why at this point in time, I don't have any plans to get myself a bottle of Ormond Woman. Wednesday, I went with this. It's probably the weekly rotation of some of my favorite looking bottles, to be honest. And this is no exception. Habanita by Molinard Eau de Parfum. There's a very noticeable resin note in here, mastic note. It's combined with a bunch of powderiness, probably coming from heliotrope, on a vanilla-y base. It's very lush and cloudy and diffusive and very, very long lasting. It's definitely a mood wearing Habanita, and I did wear it to the office, and I don't care if it's not entirely office appropriate. It's probably gonna, if you overspray this, you could choke out an elevator or two, but I love wearing it. Always makes me feel cozy and warm. And later that day, I also finished another sample. This one was from a brand called Chantecaille. I think they're more known for their cosmetics, but they make a perfume line, and the one I have been testing and finally finished my sample of was one called Kalimantan. Now, this perfume, the very first time I wore it, like my very, very first impression was, oh, this is a Serge Lutens Ombre Sultan homage. And to its credit, it's a little bit more than that. But the main differences I found was there is a particular note in Kalimantan, apart from the similarities with Ombre Sultan, that reminds me a little bit of Amouage's Interlude Man. And I think it is that kind of smoky oregano, dry oregano note that it also has. I don't know if it's listed on their note pyramid, but I definitely pick it up. So to me, Kalimantan is a little bit of a hybrid of, it's more Ombre Sultan with a little bit of Amouage Interlude Man thrown in for good measure. It's completely wearable, but at the price that it sells for, and off the top of my head I can't remember, but it's not a cheap perfume. If anyone was asking me to recommend them an amber perfume in that kind of genre, I'd just steer them towards Serge Lutens and get Ombre Sultan. All right, what day are we up to? Thursday, I wore one of my newer bottles, one that I got earlier this year. This is Grimoire by Anatole Le Breton. Basically, it's an incense. There is a noticeable incense, yes. I smell a lot of elemi resin in here as well as probably frankincense. The incense has got this real lemony citrus aspect to it, and it's combined with a touch of cumin, not overpowering. And yes, some of you might be thinking, I wonder how similar it smells to something like Eau de Hermes, for instance. This has got way more incense than that perfume does. The citrusy aspects are quite similar. And what happens in the dry down is that it kind of sweetens it. I get like this kind of dry vanillic accord in the base that gives off this kind of dustiness about it. It's a very, I don't use this term very often for a perfume, but I find this perfume really alluring and actually makes me feel quite alluring when I wear it. It's so good. It's not going to be for everybody. Some people will be put off by that opening, but I just find it it really draws me in. Like I spray this on, and I always usually put something on the back of my hand, and I found myself on Thursday just like constantly sniffing the back of my hand. But yeah, Grimoire is definitely no regrets bottle. It's not a blind buy, but I did only test it once or twice, and I was immediately taken with it. Later that day, I finished off my sample of Histoire de Parfum 1725 Casanova. This one gets quite is like a fraghead favourite, if you like, for especially fans of Fougère style perfumes. It is on the kind of the dry down gets a little bit sweeter than I would prefer in my Fougères. There's kind of vanillic almond base to it, but in general, I find it to have a pretty similar structure to something that I'm going to talk about in a second, and that is Penhaligon's Sartorial. But Sartorial, to me, has a lot of resemblance to 1725, but with that sweetness removed, which is what I really like about Sartorial. So as much as I enjoyed 1725, that's another perfume where I've tested it. I'm very happy I tried it. It's a perfectly well-made perfume, but just not something that I'm ever going to miss at the moment. Friday, the aforementioned Sartorial was my scent of the morning by Penhaligon's. Still my very favourite, Fougère barbershop style perfume. And then in the evening, I went for my end of work week. I went with Musk Tonkan by Parfum d'Empire, one of the such a quality house, perfume house. Pretty much everything I've tried, even if I haven't, if I've decided it's not for me to wear, there is something really interesting with a lot of these perfumes. And I own 3 of these, and I have to say, I've done a review of Musk Tonkan, and this is definitely, if I were to make a top 10 sluttiest perfumes that I wear, this would be near the top of the list. On Saturday, I'm very surprised. I've been wearing a lot of Antaeus by Chanel. I did say some months ago that this is probably one of the perfumes that I might not replace when I've finally finished the bottle, but I think I'm starting to change my mind about that, because I just love wearing it. There's still nothing quite like it elsewhere on the market. It's still like Dior's Fahrenheit. I don't smell a lot of other things trying to replicate what this does, and maybe it's just because of the era that it came out of. But this is my manly man perfume. And Saturday evening, I went with Annick Goutard's Ombre Fétiche. This, again, is a lovely, very complex amber perfume. But each time I've worn it, the thing that stands out to me is this is a leather amber to me. Now, I don't know if there's a deliberate leather accord that was created as part of the note pyramid for this perfume, but it's certainly almost a combination of a labdanum and castoreum style a leather accord. It's quite a dirty ambery leather. It's not overly sweet for an amber perfume, which is again something I really like, but I'm so glad that I have this bottle of Ombre Fetiche. On Sunday, I started the morning with this tiny little vintage bottle of Un Homme by Charles Jourdan. Now, interesting thing is I've been wearing, I have a few vintage masculine miniatures that I've been sort of testing out, and this smells great. There is absolutely no doubt. But I have been thinking that a couple of them really do smell of a particular era, and you could probably say that for a number of perfumes that come out at a particular time. So we're talking late 70s, early 80s, when stuff like this was coming out. And I'm not saying that they all smell the same, but there's obviously a style, like quite a distinct, big, sort of aromatic, mossy style of perfume that was quite popular, particularly with men in that period. And sometimes I wonder if this kind of romance for vintage perfumes, particularly in these masculine leaning perfumes, is kind of really more about not so much that perfumes were made better back then. It's more so that they don't really make this style of perfume anymore, and that's a valid reason to be a fan of vintage perfumes or be a vintage perfume hunter, because I find it hard to believe I'm going to walk into a department store today and go to the men's perfume section and find anything that smells like Un Homme by Charles Jourdan. But obviously I enjoy it. Again, I'll finish it. I'll enjoy wearing it, but it's not something. So far, I haven't been drawn to the dark side of vintage perfume. And Sunday evening, I went with 34 Boulevard Saint-Germain by Diptyque. One of the perfumes I consider like beautiful, just a beautiful smell. I just think of beauty when I smell it. And unfortunately, I was wearing this when something really bad happened, and but I'm not gonna let that scent association ruin the perfume for me. I guess the opposite's going to happen. It's going to kind of remind me of the good things about what happened, or I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's going to be a good association. That's the week. Last week, my weekly rotation. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry this video's late. I hope you find it interesting. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. And thank you. Bye.